let's take a deep breath, allow ourselves to arrive. Whatever it took for us to be here, whether we're in person or we're singing at home or emotion, whatever it is, just how amazing that you take time to do something like this and to pay attention so that you could bring a little bit, let's say something more wholesome for your families and for yourselves. So as we're allowing ourselves to arrive in this way, just let yourselves relax and start to imagine first the word holiday. See the word. And as you see the word, just notice what it brings up for you. You feel happy? Are you cringing? You feel like, oh, it's happening already. Or, oh my goodness, this is the best time ever. Whatever it is that comes up for you, just notice. And allow yourselves to travel back in time. If you have multiple children, decide to imagine that you are the age of one of your children. And see if you could have a memory come up from the way you spent holidays at that age. What memory comes up for you? What holiday is it? What are you doing? Is it a happy memory? Is it a difficult one? What is it that you see? What lives in you that you carry with you to the holidays now through that memory? And you could even ask yourself, why this memory out of all the holidays and out of all the memories? Why this one? And just allow yourselves to take a nice full breath and then exhale all the way out. Let go of the image and we'll bring ourselves back into this space. So you don't have to answer, but you can. When you had that memory, what happened? Think about this. In that memory that made it meaningful, what was meaningful in this? Often, and I might say, if anybody wants to call out, anybody want to say what memory they had?
Decorating the Christmas tree with the family.
Yeah, yeah. And it was what kind of?
It was loud and active, and we were in pajamas.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
And from smiling, I'm picking up on joyful.
it was joyful. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Anybody else?
I was allowed to sit on the countertop when we lit candles, so that was usually not allowed.
Yeah, yeah. Something special, different. Anybody else?
I like driving around with my family on Christmas Eve to see all the Christmas lights, the decorations around. It
Yeah.
was just my family and I. It was quiet and nice.
Yeah. Well, so far, and now, you could think about what it was that came up for you, but so far, there's I'm hearing a lot of connection, family connection, right? Even down to something so simple that I was allowed to sit on a counter and that was never allowed because the candles were lit. when I was able to do that. There's some kind of a different kind of attention that happens when we have something special. And so a lot of times I point out to families, I haven't, it's very interesting. I think it only happened once, but on a regular basis, I haven't had parents reflect back to me anything that's based on media about their memories. And this generation is definitely a generation that had media in their lives, at least televisions, right? So I haven't had that reflected back. And often, I think it's only happened once that somebody talked about a present and it was very meaningful to them, this memory that they brought about a certain gift that they received that was really meaningful to them. But it's often not a materialistic, it's about connection. And that's something that I hope that all of us will take into our hearts and remember throughout this season. And I also want to say, in a first off, when we think about a holiday season, whatever holiday we celebrate or do not celebrate, we are bombarded. For little children, it's a lot, right? I think Halloween is up there now with maybe even worse because I walk a lot. I'm always telling my my classes that Jack and I walk all the time. And at Halloween, it was like so many lights and of course horrible, horrible, really awful decorations, for especially for little children. But the thing is, you can't help but be bombarded, right? Like, whoa, whoa! Like it's like a sensory experience, right? And I actually like walking around and being like, oh, look at that, look at how they decorated, and look at thank you, and taking it in. Jack and I are always having the debates about, do you like those color lights, or do you like that, or do you like what kind of white light do you like? Do you like the goldish or the white ones? Like this is what we talk about. We walk a lot. But the thing is, we're noticing. We can't help it. It's coming at us. So young children have that happening. And the fact that our consumerism is over the top. Often what starts to happen very young for children is as soon as they see these lights and these things going up around town, they start thinking about what they're going to get. And it happens super young. And so here, every year since 2014, for my own family and for any families that come, all of you and all of you that are here, I remind all of us that we have ways to connect with our families above and beyond materialism and consumerism. So we're going to talk about that and what we could do. But we do have to acknowledge that there's sensory overload that happens. And there's a simplifytheholidays.org now. It used to be called the New American Dream or something like that. And they're always talking about natural things to do and how to connect with the environment and nature instead of going in the direction of materialism and consumerism during the holidays. And they say that American households generate 23% more tons of waste than any other months this month. 23% more tons of waste. So they said it's not just trash, it's fossil fuels and trees and other natural resources that go toward plastics because of all of the toys in that are being made this time of year. And I also wanted to bring this fact that I bring every year since 2014, probably, that a study that had been done back then was that the average American child receives 70 gifts per year. And that's the average American child. If we times that by their age and we times that by the amount of children we have, we could imagine how cluttered our homes will get if we do not keep on top of it, or at least pay attention to the fact that we're overdoing it. And we get this kind of pressure this time of year to feel like not only do we have to do these things for our family to make them happy, but we have to do it for this one and that one and get this and that. And we get into this whole craze and pressure. So we're going to dial it back a little bit and remember how to connect and create meaning and rituals during this time of year. So during this season, just like we started off at the beginning, I would just want to ask you, every time you're involved in setting up for a holiday or getting ready for a holiday, and you start to feel tense, ask yourself, are my values living here? What are my values? I heard some that organically and naturally occur, and that's connection, right? To have family connection. That goes above and beyond anything across the board when I ask families to say, give me a memory. So if values are very high to have connection, how is it when we lose ourselves into pressure? Sometimes I say to parents, it's a known fact. If you're moving really fast and you're busy and you're running late for things, you're going to have a lot of pressure and you're going to be agitated. If you're feeling pressure and stressed out over who's coming over and what did we get, and all of these things, and did we decorate just right, and all of the pressures that we might be putting on ourselves, we are not going to be as happy, calm, and peaceful as we would like to be, and as we hold our values, right? So ask yourself the question over and over again. Is my holiday season aligning with my values? And ask yourself this question. When I think about the holidays, I might feel some happiness and joy and excitement. But what would the one thing be that you would change if you could? What is the one thing that you would change if you could? You could sit with that. Already.
Presents.
Presents.
Yeah, the expectation of getting instead of giving. Yeah. For the children.
Yeah.
Not myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love presents, but I don't get them. You know what I mean? The 70 gifts a year. Yeah, that
Yeah.
stresses me out.
Yeah.
The expectation of giving too, and it's not reciprocal in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody else?
No, but that makes sense. I mean, I feel the same. And I think about Thanksgiving, which is probably my favorite holiday, because there are no expectations about anything. It's just getting together, sharing, eating, talking. So for me, that would be great if like Christmas or whatever, it would be like that, just like doing out.
Yes. Yes. And it can be. And especially when we have young children and we have opportunities to change this kind of we carry this pattern, this pressure pattern that we feel from the world. And we can do things differently. I have a friend from Waldorf who always, their family only made gifts for each other. So they celebrated Christmas, and on Christmas morning, they each opened a gift that one made for another family member. And that was it. Wonderful. I also had a family who, instead of opening presents in the morning, she's actually a teacher here. Instead of opening presents in the morning, she would go to the Abadan Society and they would do the count the birds, Christmas morning count the birds. They have that you know, you go and you register for it and you can see how many birds you see and put it in so they can track how many birds are there. I mean, how wonderful. So that was so special. She would take her children and her spouse and they would go and have a wonderful morning, and that was the gift. And the children loved it. So it doesn't have to be that we buy into it has to be this way. And we could already feel like, yeah, but I already broke it, and I my children have expectations around holidays and birthdays, and you know, we have all this pressure because now we set the stage. We could change things and we could be very joyful about it. So, what would you eliminate that you're carrying now on your holidays? What would you simplify? What would bring you more peace, more warmth, more connection? Think about all of these things. And I want to introduce something that a lot of you know, but from the lens of looking at it as holiday time and celebration time. So in Simplicity Parenting, we talk about these 4 realms. And when we pay attention to these 4 realms during the holiday, we already can start to change things. So we already touched on a lot of this topic of environment. But I also want to say, I remember when our kids were little and we had inherited, say, decorations from my mom, and my grandmother used to make these little decorations, and we had this thing and that thing, and came from a family that celebrated Christmas. You had to see my little scene. I had everybody out there from from the Buddha to who knows who, you know, hanging around in my little scenes that I would make. But one thing that was always true, and my children thought it was they'll still laugh about it, and my neighbors used to laugh. I did not wait until January 6th or whatever. The day after Christmas, that tree would be outside. I'd be like, I need everything gone. You know, the clutter and the feeling. And I started thinking, you know, as years went on, do I want that? And I started to let go. You know, so I'm just saying, even our inner environment starts to change sometimes around holiday time. And I agree with you about Thanksgiving. We don't have that. It's just if you have people over, you set a table, you know, it might be that. But it's just so simple. So I started to adopt and bring in more and more simplicity as the years went on. And you know, so even when my children were young, it was like, boom, you know, it was a very narrow period of time where we would have decorations and things because I felt a difference. And I'm not saying, by the way, to judging, you know, if somebody go at it, if that's what makes you happy, but pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to the children too, you know, because sometimes their behaviors get heightened and we don't even realize why because they're getting so ramped up with excitement. It's like when we have little children and we tell them, your cousins are coming to visit, but it's not happening until a month from now. and we told them, and they're so excited that they're hyper, waiting and waiting and waiting, and their misbehavior is getting higher and higher and higher. And then when that day comes that the cousins come, everything falls apart. It's a similar thing with the holiday. They get so ramped up sometimes. And we are best to practice as best we could to bring these things in a neutral way so that children have a better chance at actually enjoying. So, environment. We are really affected by our surroundings. And as I said, not only our inside of the house that I just mentioned, but outside, we're getting bombarded. So, where do we find peace? So, it is suggested that we find spaces in our home, even during holidays, if we are a person who does decorate, if you do celebrate a holiday that brings lots of this decoration, you want to pay attention. How do you feel? If you feel a certain way, you can imagine how your child does because they absorb everything. So reduce clutter, create simple and calm spaces. And along with environment, I remind parents as an inspiration to have a big box, an empty box. You could decorate it. You could have your children decorate it, put, all their beautiful Waldorf watercolor pictures, tape it and make it something beautiful, and make it the giving box. Start now. Start tomorrow morning. Have that box and have the children know that we're going to give many things away with such joy to other people who could really love this stuff. And so you have that giving box and you have that as an example of constantly putting things in it, knowing that you're going to give it to somebody else. When children find that joy of giving, you can never stop it. They want to do that all the time. And actually, my two kids will still say, Jack, you awake over there? My two kids will still say, I like giving gifts better than getting them. Across the board. And it's because of these kind of habits of always giving. We have too much. Let's give, whether it's clothing, whether it's toys, and some things might really flip you out a little bit. Meaning, I don't want to give that away. Grandma gave that to you. I used to do that, and then I'd let them give it away. I'd notice my reaction, my grasping, my deep breath I had to take, and be like, yeah, and then I know that it carried through in the year where my kids would, if a friend was over, Mom, my friend would like to have this toy that we have. May I give it to her? Of course you may. Yeah. And so sometimes it was something that I was like, oops, what's my mother going to say when she comes over and it's not here? But I would still honor the fact that they wanted to give, right? And it certainly never came back to me to haunt me. It just brought joy and brought the children joy. So when we have this idea about environment, think about giving. Start now. And your children can even come with you to give those things away. If you have a charity, you can bring it. You have friends that you want to share it with, you can bring the big box and let the friends go through and take what they want. Even our own things, our clothing, everybody can do these exchanges and giveaways. And the children can take part in it and it will be part of them. So that feeling of giving takes over from the getting, and that feeling of, oh, am I going to make a list of all these things and be really disappointed when I don't get everything on my list, won't even exist, because they'll be thinking about, what am I going to give? And I want to also say this kind of giving is very natural. It's very gentle. It's not that kind of like, oh, well, I have to go, spend all the money in the bank to go give. It's a different kind of giving, right? So in that uh, website that I told you about, simplifytheholidays.org, they talk about this a lot, giving back, and even how you can give gifts to people of things that you had and you're no longer using, and just do exchanges. I remember Native American community that we were in, every it was actually in December, they would have the exchange, and it was an exchange that people would bring beautiful things like these beautiful blankets and everything, and everybody would just put it in the center and take. And it was so beautiful. So there are ways. Environment. Questions or thoughts about environment before we move on to the next realm? All good? Rhythm. So at a holiday time, it is very important that we remember to keep our rhythm. And we have, I think, 2 weeks off here. Yeah,
A little more, right?
more.
Two-
Breathe
almost two
in,
and a
breathe
half.
out.
Almost 2.5.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So a lot of times parents will feel like, oh, I got 2.5 weeks. It's nice. We're gonna have a break. So we have freedom. And then 3 days in, it's like, when is the school opening again? And usually the big panic comes when we went into it in this very joyful way. It's going to be so fun, be home with my children. It's going to be great. And then all of a sudden things fall apart quickly when we don't have rhythm set. So if you think about your children, say in early childhood or in the grades, what time do they have their snacks? What time do they have their lunch when they're at school? Try to stay with that. Find the anchors. What time do they go to sleep on a school night? Let them continue to go to sleep at that time. Your children are going to be better for it, and so will you. So it might feel like, oh, but we like to loosen up because it's the holiday. Within 3 days, that will get very old. And you will really be wishing that they were back in school. And it doesn't have to be that way. So rhythm is important to find those anchors. I talked about eating and I talked about sleep, keeping those the same. Thinking about other parts of your rhythm that you can keep the same. If you know the children come to school after they have breakfast and they go straight outside and play here, bring them outside after you eat. You do not have to make your home a little Waldorf school. I just said this morning to the group, that would be weird. Your home is your home. But to pull on anchors to keep things steady for them, because their little bodies hold that rhythm and it makes them feel safe. And when they have rhythm, there are less tantrums, there's less misbehavior, they know what to expect. Does it mean they're going to be perfectly behaved? No, no. But with the holiday time, whether you're celebrating or not, if you're going from one place to the next and you promised this relative that you would go visit and then a neighbor or whatever it might be, there's a lot of shuffling around or a lot of family time or family visits that might be shifting your typical rhythm. So find your anchors and let them have them. Don't be afraid also to keep them in their regular sleep times, even when you were wishing that you could go to a party with them. don't be afraid to say, we're going to keep our rhythm. It might feel weird and feel like a drag, but I want to say it again. They'll be happier and calmer, and so will you.
And their teachers will thank you.
And thank you, spoken from one of the teachers. Yes, because when children come back from break, I know from being in the nursery and kindergarten for many years, it would be like, we're going to face. And it was usually not so great, no matter what, because things were different, right? And especially toward the end, things would start falling apart because parents were just like, I can't take it anymore. And you know, we go into those parenting phases and the parenting quadrant falling into the neglectful space was because I can't take it anymore.
I was just gonna, I know I've asked this in Simplicity for the holidays in previous years, because we go to Florida for almost the entire time. And and we stay at my in-laws' house, and there's a lot of aunts and uncles, and I feel like I'm like the lone rhythm police. And everybody's like, you're on vacation, and like giving the kids sweets and taking them, and it's just, and I've learned to like breathe and have a talk with my mother-in-law in advance and be like, I would really like there to be set meal times, and it fairly it doesn't work. It does, I don't know. But like, any tips on speaking to relatives about help keeping them, honoring the rhythm, or at least, and then the kids have meltdowns and they're like,
Yeah.
and I always say
Well,
it's
I
it's a challenge, because you want to be a good daughter-in-law,
throw that out the window because that doesn't exist. I would throw that out the window.
Yeah.
And I just put the kids, first. And it's really interesting because we had a conversation today in Wisdom Heart about not having the kids first, right? About not making them the center of the universe. But when it comes to their health and well-being and their sense of life, their sense of life, meaning they need to know as they're growing when they're tired and when they're hungry. When we take them and put them into another situation where they're not eating at the same time and they're not sleeping at the same time, and it's kind of like all star, anything goes, it's like putting them into a blender and just, and then they come out and they're like, whoa, right? They don't know where they are. So in that case, I say we put the children first. And I use that example of, Jack, do you remember the trip to St. Vincent? Right, my kids were little. My dear friend, he's still one of my besties, my friend Danny. He was getting married, and we rarely traveled, and we did. We took the kids, and it meant a lot. This very dear friend of mine, and he was marrying a woman from St. Vincent. So we went, and there were friends there with children, and my kids were very little. And I would just say, when everybody was getting ready to, whatever it was, have lunch, I would say, bye. I'd take my children and I would go tuck into this little room that we had, shut all the lights, shut all the shades, nap, right? Dinner time, I would sit there, well, with Jack, of course, because he's such a great guy. 5:30, having our dinner alone, outside in a beautiful atmosphere. My children didn't know that. I mean, they weren't like, why isn't everybody else? They were little, we were just moving with it, right? Then we would eat, go to sleep. They'd be sleeping by 7 o'clock. I could sit outside the little bungalow at nighttime and just look at the stars, and everybody would be walking past going, you coming to dinner? Like, no, I ate 2 hours ago. Thank you. And then the next day, people would say, why are your children so well behaved? I never see them cry. And I would start laughing. I'd say it's because I go to sleep with them for a nap and for bedtime. They're rested. Yeah. So it was worth it, to me to yeah, I was the lone person, say, on the island doing that, but it's not like a constant thing, and it wasn't my direct family, so I know it's a little
So
different.
challenging.
It's very challenging. So if you're in a situation where you're with this big family and you kind of like have the situation, you move together and you make the decision that you are going to this and you do it every year and you deal with it, just know it's going to be messy.
Mm.
And the thing that I would hope for, yeah, breathe in, breathe out, is that you could find the anchors the best you can. But the thing I really hope for is that you have at least 4 days home before school.
That's what I know. Josh was like, "How what if we come back the day before?" I was like, "Because that's not good for me,
Yeah.
Right.
you know."
Yeah.
And
No, it's really,
so challenging.
yeah, it's really important. It's just like I say to families when August hits, right before school starts, start getting them into bed at 7 o'clock, right? Because the children are going to be well rested and ready for that school rhythm. It's the same thing
So true.
because in January it feels like September
Mhm.
for all of us, like the children, the teachers, the parents, like you said, it's hard, so
Except it's dark and cold.
except it's dark and cold. Yes, yes. So it's not a perfect
Mhm.
situation. I can't give you a perfect answer.
More of like what to say to the older generation that are like,
Oh, I
"They're
was
on
very,
vacation, you
I
should
just,
keep them up. They're having fun. They're kids. They get to have fun. They could have, you know."
yeah, I would say, because I had family that would say this stuff to me all the time, and I would say, yeah, this is our version of fun. This is what we do. This is what we do for fun. I know it might not look, and the kids are like, I remember Luke like, oh, I don't want to go though. I'd be like, oh yes, but that's what we're doing, dear. You know. So it's just having that confidence to just, and also to be okay, by the way, with being judged when we make these decisions. I know I'm a little older than most of you now, um, all of you. And so I don't care as much, right? But even when I was younger, with the little children, I had to work that muscle and take a deep breath and say, I'm helping my children. And that's what matters. And people could judge away. I have the famous story of my dad, saying like, "What are you doing with these kids at this school? What is this weird place? They're always filthy." When they would go. He's very meticulous, and the dirt was just like mind blowing to him. And I would just shrug my shoulders, "Ah, yeah, doing their thing." And then he said, how could you not show the media? I'll get to that topic, by the way. How you're ruining their lives. All the cousins know all the cartoons and they don't know them, and you're making them outcasts. And I'd be like, yeah. I don't have to go into a big conversation about it, actually. Oh, Jack, you want to end that story?
What I was gonna say.
Come over here so they could hear you.
By sticking somewhat with your rhythm and your things, you're also showing your children that you're not gonna bend, like, for their friend, like when they're have their friends growing up, that they're gonna respect you as a parent and they're gonna follow in kind of the rhythms that you've had and create that decision where a lot of people will make a decision that doesn't serve themselves because they see their parents doing that. And then they're like, oh, I shouldn't go jump or light these fireworks, but because I'm getting pressure now I'm going to. My parents got the same pressure when we were on holiday together and they felt, so why shouldn't I? So there's also an unconscious message, and it's not going to be perfect, but if you did find a couple things where you kept a couple boundaries and maybe a few things where you let it go, at least you're sending a message that other people's will doesn't come before your own,
Mhm. Yeah.
stuff.
Bravo.
It's a good, and that'll carry through when you're teenagers.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
There's
Absolutely.
more.
And it does. And you know, we've had those straight up conversations with Luke of how he said thank you for having those boundaries because
He didn't say thank you then. He says-
and he says, I know I drove you crazy and I really pushed. He said, but you always, when you made up your mind, that was it. And he said, and it really helped me not lose myself in partying and doing all the, you know, crazy things that the kids were doing in college. You know, he was calling me, I remember sophomore year telling me, he's like, I have such a strong willpower. It's like he was shocked. Yeah. And it wasn't always that way. You know, it was not easy, actually, you know. So, the bottom line back to what happened with my dad with judging and me just going, you know, shrugging my shoulders and not taking it personally either. And, you know, I never wanted to get into it deeply and argue with relatives about things because if I get into it, somebody always wants to be right. And it was probably going to end up me wanting to be right. And it's not about that. It's just about this is what I'm choosing to do with my children. There's no right or wrong. I'm just doing the best that I can do. And this is what I believe is best. It's okay if you don't believe that. I'm okay with that. So you know, years later, my dad at a family party, my kids were the only ones not with iPads and iPhones, like, you know, sitting there like this at a table. All the cousins were sitting at a table, little ones, big ones, all the little cousins. They all had their heads down. And my kids were walking around speaking to their aunts and uncles. And my father was like, your kids are amazing. They're incredible. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So don't worry about judgment. Those things come and go like clouds in the sky. People are going to say stuff. Jack, come on up.
Finish that story. He now then just goes, you were right about that school. You know,
Yes,
like
does.
all of a sudden, because she
He does.
didn't bend her will to him, he had to see what happened as it played out. And then when he did, he was able to say, actually, he didn't say he was wrong, but he did say that she was like made the right choice.
Yeah.
So,
He always
you know,
says
she could have
that's-
bent her will to him
I mean,
and then
this was not
that was-
planned, you know, about like pitching about Waldorf, you know, but it is true. He would say that school really did them well. He's like, they're really amazing.
But speaking to the school about the rhythm and all this philosophy that goes with it is what's informing what's going on here. And the more you can bring it in, the more you're gonna see the benefits, right?
Yes,
So-
oh, absolutely. And even if you become a non-believer at some points, I was, by the way, you know, with Luke, I was like, nothing's working. I'm doing everything, you know, and you know, and I wonder, you know, how is this going to pan out? But we stuck with believing, you know, we believed in him ultimately, very much so, actually. And even though behaviors happen, we want to, I'm coming back to the fact that, you know, during holidays, we have all these pressures. We always want to come back to our true north. Just live into your truth. What is your value? Don't worry. Go like this. You don't have to do that. And make people realize that you're ignoring them, but just make believe you're putting your fingers in your ears when people are talking and just go, yeah. Or how interesting, Dad. How interesting that that's how you feel. Yeah, it's so interesting because it is. So environment and rhythm. Now, during holiday time, especially when we have these long breaks, we also could get our handy calendar and look at it and say, okay, more than 2 weeks, I'm going to fill this calendar up with something to do every single day. Please, no. Please, no. You can do things. I'm not saying don't do anything, but don't feel that you have to fill your child's calendar with something to do all the time, at every minute, going from one thing to the other. If you have a healthy rhythm, get your calendar out and write out what your day is going to look like when you're home. And then the next day, you take them to, say, a nature preserve, and you write down that you're going to do that and what time. And you fit it in between meals and you have that big breath out, or maybe you'll end up having a meal out, right? Sometimes that'll happen, but you'll be able to keep a rhythm. So you do not have to fill your schedule. And another part of building our confidence as a parent and this will that Jack was pointing to is also the ability to say no to events. You know, if you're invited to, your children are invited to this party or that party, you don't have to say yes to everything. And are you going to insult somebody? Maybe. And we're sorry about that, right? It's not like we're doing it to hurt people. But again, this is a case where we're putting our children first. It is okay. But don't you want to come to the big gathering at Chuck E. Cheese for the this, that, and the other? No, thank you. So simple. No, thank you. Right? Don't you want to come to the big event in Manhattan where we gather at that hotel with 350 people? No, thank you. No, thank you. It sounds wonderful. Have a great time. So work that no muscle. And if you feel bad that you said no, work on that, right? The guilt muscle. And then look at your children and just take a deep breath and say, I'm doing what's best for them. And ultimately, it's going to be best for you too. So I'm going to say this again. I'm not saying say no to everything, but really listen to what you're saying yes to, right? Does it hold your values? Thoughts or questions?
I
Jack?
just wanted to, sorry,
Go ahead.
did
Oh, hi.
someone else speak at exactly the same time? Hi, what Jack said was extremely timely for me because Dean has a lot of friends starting to get devices, and there's been family members that seem to have this like great concern about his boredom on the bus. And so he's gotten lots of like gifts in the form of Tetris and things like that. And then even one of his cousins sent me a lengthy text message about the fact that they wanted to buy him a digital watch that, you know, for Christmas due to the fact that he's so bored on the bus. And I just was like, no, thank you. Like, definitely not. Thank you for asking first. And, you know, keep having over and over again to draw this boundary. And then I was on, like, I've been on an OCD loop with them about, you know, where's the Tetris game? Can I have it? Can I have it back? Why did you take it? But it kind of goes on, and then it comes back up. And so I am very happy to hear that, like, I know that it's wrong. It's unfortunate that so many people around us are like, you know, whatever. Anyway, I do see the benefits. Dean's an amazing musician, and there's things he's doing that are just so above and beyond anything I thought he could ever accomplish. So I know that having his brain free is giving him so much wisdom. But
Yeah.
how do I shut it down before I start to like melt down in a way? Because I'm feeling like, you know, I don't know how to put a period on it with
Well, first of all, I know Jack Cleary is going to want to talk about this because he's literally bursting out of his chair here, and I know what he's going to say. I just want to say first that you're doing great. And the fact that, you know, I really related to, of course, Luke happens to be in music, you know, a musician, and he makes music every single day. Every single day, he's showing us new music that he made. And I believe it's because we did not give him devices as a young person. I believe that he didn't get caught because he had the kind of mind, Luke, that he would have got addicted to gaming. I know that. My daughter was very different. She could care less. Like people could have 5 iPads out and she'd be like, not even interested. But my son would be like, whoa, you know? And so we had to work and be really sturdy. And this is what Luke was saying to me, thank you for all those times I was pushing you to give me technology and you wouldn't do it. It really saved me. He said my friends, when he was at a Berkeley School of Music, they would be the ones that went over to him with their phones and they were like, get rid of this app for me. I'm so addicted. I can't even get rid of it. And Luke would be like, I'm like the app remover for people because I don't have an addiction to any of it. Anyway, Jack, come.
Just gonna say that boredom is the greatest gift that any
Yes.
child can tell you they're experiencing. Because, I mean, think about anything that's great, that's been creative, whether it's, Albert Einstein creating theories, whether it's a CEO creating a business, whether it's a painting, that all came from someone sitting in their mind and being bored or being alone or having time, and then that's where it all came from. I mean, so like whenever I hear like all we think about the US, we're all about entertainment, everything, our phone. I mean, we all get distracted by it. I do, everyone does. We're constantly, our brain gets addicted to being entertained. And the more entertained we are, the less that we are going to go out and create and participate in other things. So I would say anytime your kids tell you they're bored over the next, anytime, I would just say to our kids, that's great. I can't wait to see what's going to come out of it. And then like my like Stephanie said, like my daughter is dancing or she's making a dress. My son is making his music or he sketches like incredible sketches. And and it's not to be bragging about like, oh, our kids did this and our kids did that. I'm just telling you clearly what I've seen. It has nothing to do, and I've seen it with other people who had their kids go to Waldorf as well. And you look at successful people from this school, and it could be anywhere in the world. They don't have to go to Waldorf to be bored. You can be bored anywhere. But like you look at look at Ken Chenault. He went to the school and he's the CEO of American Express. He had to have so many times where he had to be contemplating his life and things and being bored or being alone with his thoughts. If you're on a bus and you're not looking at your phone, you're going to be looking out the window. You're going to be thinking about something that's creative. Your creative imagination is the greatest gift that anyone has. And now we have artificial intelligence. It's going to keep trying to steal all of that from us. So the more you can let your kids be away, be open, be in nature, be bored, all those things, I guarantee any kid that's bored eventually will not be bored. And I'll just end with this last story. I was once watching a show on PBS. It was about this family. They made all these families go back and live in like 1845 or whatever. And this kid was out playing with a stick. And they said to the kid, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm playing with this stick. And he goes, and it's really, really fun. He goes, but if I was back home, meaning back home in modern times, this would be so boring. So just think about that. Like the kid had a world from a stick, where meanwhile he'd be sucked in by a television or a computer or something. So stay bored, people.
Stay
Good.
bored. And if you've enjoyed this, we have a podcast now that two started launching, so you could watch more of Stephanie and Jack talking. Okay.
Is anybody
Is that real? Did you actually do that?
A podcast?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Oh
two-
my God, that's amazing. What is that
Sue's
called?
been posting it, so she posts an episode every Monday. So I don't know, maybe she could put it in the chat, but
I
yes.
drop it in the chat now.
Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to add, like the importance of nature, because I love nature, but in the cold, I don't like nature so much. And like this Thanksgiving break we were hosting, so we were home the whole time. And at one point I'm like, these kids just need to go outside, but it's cold, it's raining, it's like, it's more about me being willing to do that, because sometimes it's not like going outside in summertime,
Yeah.
But I still think they need it
Yeah.
over the break.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just say the famous quote, there's no bad weather, just bad outerwear. And and I learned, because I'm a real city girl, and I like being warm. I like being in warm places. And then I started teaching at Waldorf. I had children, and I found, I was doing crazy things actually even before they were born, and camping in crazy situations and things like this. And I learned, and so get the gear, get warm boots, get wool, wear layers, bundle up, you will be better for it. And once you do that, it might feel like a royal pain, putting on all these layers, but you will be comfortable, meaning you won't be freezing. And then you go outside and you feel like a new person. And I remember days when I was teaching with Mrs. Kane, who was like Waldorf guru, and it would be some kind of insane weather outside, like and we'd just be putting our boots on, looking at each other, and be like, I'm going out. And you pull yourself up and your face is like this, and you go outside and you're out there and these children are playing, and you just let something just like lets free. And it is amazing. And it changed me even more, than just the camping trips, because it was just like being in basic life and really being with whatever was happening, right? And so what it did also was created children, not only at the school but then at home. We lived on we still live on this like double dead end block, and there were a bunch of kids on the block, and every time the weather was awful and pouring, my kids would be like, woohoo, they'd be in their boots outside splashing around. And one neighbor used to text me, she's like, you're crazy, your children are crazy. And then her children started coming out in it. She started getting them gear, and they started to be out in it. And now when it's pouring rain, I mean, still it amazes me. Luke will look outside and be like, wow, look at how nice that rain is coming down. And he doesn't have this negative connotation about rain. So I would say to parents, even in the winter, and where I love the warm weather, and I'd be like, oh, it's dreary and gray or whatever. I had to train myself to open the curtains in the morning and be like, oh, what a beautiful winter day. Everything is so gray. Look at it outside, and I started to really look at things. I mean, I sound crazy, but it started to enliven me about what was really happening, because I was always looking for the sun and warm.
That's so many people though.
Yeah.
It's like, and it builds resilience in the kids.
Yeah.
Because they're not thwarted by, the weather doesn't dictate their feelings.
No, and they're watching us.
Yeah.
And you'll see as they start to get it could happen already when they're young, but as they start to get a little older, if we're a person who's like, oh, I don't want to go outside, if you're verbally being like that, or even like tucking it in, they start to get like that. And they start to get like, I don't want to go out in the rain, or I don't want, and actually it's very natural for children to just want to be part of the elements. It's us that takes it away, so for me, my suggestion is just get that gear, get the right gear, cozy, wonderful, warm wool, silk, whatever calls you, and wear it, and go outside and just take some breaths. Let it be like a meditation, right? And the perfect time to practice this is the holiday time, when these kids are home with us and we're just like, you know what? I'm building in times that we're going to nature places. We're going to do it 3 times a week, and we're going to go to a nature place, and we're going to bundle up and we're going. We had this place we used to go to upstate, and no matter what, once a month, whatever the weather, we would be there, and we would be bundled up and on sheets of ice on this land, and just be there for the entire day, building a fire, just being outside, and just having that experience of this is what it would be like if we were just living out here. And so I highly recommend pushing, dear parents. I know that a lot of times parents will be like, it's not my thing, or I don't want my child out in the rain, and sometimes we have these, seeds planted in us, even from, oh, the grandparents never allowed us to do that, or, oh, where I come from, we never did that. But it's good to just see if we can let that go and be part of whatever's happening. Right? So that's part of the schedule. Leaving your schedule open and then getting in some good nature time, right?
Would even say that as for yourself as a person, as an individual parent or person, you're breaking your own habitual patterns. And every time you do that, you give yourself a new experience that maybe you would have never had. So it's also just as good for you. And also, I'll say that when we had bad weather, we weren't always outside with them. Sometimes they were just outside, and we were in a place that we could trust that they were safe. So it's not like you always have to run out, but sometimes if you do, and you go against what you conditioned, even if you're internally saying this is miserable, maybe the second or third time you open up to it, and then you're changing a pattern, and then maybe you change other patterns. We all think we're our personalities. We all think, oh, this is the way I am. Well, a lot of the reason the way we are is because of the way we were raised in our society and all those things. So that doesn't mean that's the way you have to be, or that's the way it has to be. So it's just an opportunity for yourself as an individual to kind of crack your own codes and see where you can go. And then there's more opportunity, more possibility, more things that can happen.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Okay. Thoughts, questions, observations. Okay. All right. So filtering out the adult world. Oh my goodness. Best for last. When we have holiday gatherings, any kind of gathering, when it comes to having lots of family and friends, little ears are taking everything in. See if there could be a vow. If you know that your family really gets into hot topics like politics and news, could we make the vow to not bring that to the table? Could we make a vow to keep ourselves in a space that has some joy and balance, that we're not going to put ourselves into conflict? So filtering out the adult world, it's not, a lot of times people will think about media, and of course that is part of it. And even when this is, oh, somebody did this, I don't know if it's somebody here, but we could ask family to put their phones away when they come over for a holiday. I mean, we'd be crazy, right? And maybe, maybe people would cringe, maybe they'd be like, no, but we could try. It's not like we're going to tackle our uncle at the door. Give me that phone. But we could just say, let's just really visit with each other. And we have a basket, get your phone in there, we're going to be free. And we'll be able to just like really be here. And for the children, my goodness, what an experience. Do we realize that these kids never have had experiences of being around people, not being led by these things in our world? They don't know what it is to walk down a block and have people with their heads up. They don't. They don't know what it's like to be on a subway and actually see people sitting there looking at each other, or in an elevator. They don't. Thank goodness if they're in the Waldorf school, they have the experience of having teachers that are looking at them and not at a phone. Thank goodness. But for the most part, these kids don't know life without it. How amazing would it be if we could Show them that by connecting with our families and not having these things between us. So think about that, and I know some people might be like, oh, I'm not telling my family to put the phone in. Okay. But maybe you will. Maybe you will. Or maybe you'll think about it. And maybe you'll think about it when you see everybody sitting around on the phones and how it feels, how disconnected it feels, how sad it feels. I know my kids will say, my daughter will be like, I wish we lived in a time where these things didn't exist. She'll say that often. I wish we lived in a time where this didn't exist, where we could just really be together and not have to be distracted all the time. So part of this is about the screens, yes. But as I started to mention, the very first thing is about watching adult conversation. It means a lot. It means a lot to not have our children also listening to things that make them scared. Sometimes it could feel scary if they see that all the adults at the table are in conflict and then not talking to each other after they couldn't come to an agreement about some political thing, right? It could feel really a little scary. And it could feel really difficult for children when they're hearing about news and things and people's concerns about the world. And I know that we could get into the conversations of like, oh, but aren't we preparing them? There's a time and a place. And well, early childhood, of course, we're more protective of these kinds of things. And as the children are growing, they start to hear more, and they can be part of the world. But what we've done is we've helped them to develop resilience and sturdiness by protecting them earlier on. Because a lot of times when children are exposed overly to adult conversations and concerns, we don't realize it. We think it's just sliding off of them, but they're taking it in and they're actually getting quite anxious. So they start to carry our burdens. And we might not see it actually until they're around teens. It starts to come out then. They start to get nervous. And then those children that we wanted to be strong, to be able to go out and change the world, really, right? They've been weakened because we passed on fears to them. But if we protect them when they're younger, when they do hear about what's going on in the world and they're older, they're more resilient and positive. And they feel like they can make a difference because they haven't been gnawed at by our burdens in adult conversations, right? So to watch that, to watch it with extended family and to watch it even with our own families, right? With our conversations that we have in front of the children. Know that you have a pause button you can press.
I have
Yep.
2 things to share.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it was in Lucy's karma in the last probably 3 months where we were in a situation where someone so explicitly, it was like a dart, like I didn't have a chance to protect or to walk away, or because it happened kind of out of nowhere, where in front of her she heard a family member say, well, this world is really bad, or they're on 3 different occasions, and I'm like, how is it that my kid, anyway, Angela dealt with that for me. But one thing that typically works, I just sort of excuse myself from the table, and I bring, because I notice that if I'm not at the table, then my kids don't go to the table where the adults are. So sometimes I do that. I leave before anything even gets started, because there are so many people in different phases of life. For example, it's not even because they're having a contentious conversation. I have a niece that goes to Barnard, and
now it's not, you know, with all the protests that were happening last year in the summer, there was all this concern, like how will Sophia handle it? How, you know, all these things. So sometimes it's not about like contentious stuff. It's about things that challenge that the world is good, right? And so that's one thing that like that's helped.
Yes.
The other thing that I noticed where I'm adults sometimes we have some people have a habit of complaining, and a lot of conversation is negative talk, like about complaining, like
Yes.
how they're going to get through the day, or like, you know, and we're trying to sort of hold this, you know, picture of, you know, we do what we do and this is what we're doing, and it's, you know, we're not trying to make everything seem easy, but it's also not this uphill battle, like just to get through the day, right? Or just to get through the holiday. So I do find that I have, you know, we walk away from that kind of conversation too. But with complaining, it's easier to course correct just by throwing something positive in there.
Yes, that's what I was
You know,
going to say.
So that helps.
That's what I was going to say. You know, just like Kim Payne says, you know, for every negative, it's a parent's job to find two positives. You know, and so if we're surrounded by people who are speaking negatively, it is an opportunity for us to say, "Oh, I hear you. I'm going to keep you in my heart," you know, about that. And thank goodness, you know, you've got that roof over your head and your health, or, you know, you name like two positive things that that person has that you're grateful for. And your child hears you and they pick up on that we're not getting into this, oh, I know it's so terrible, and getting into this really, you know, mode of being in it, right? So but it's not about denying, right? So we hear the person and we acknowledge it, and then we say what we're grateful for from what we can see, right? So thank you for bringing that. And yes, I think everybody must have heard when you're at a big holiday dinner table and there's conversation going awry and you start to pick up on it, you can get up and leave. And what I used to do, I'm picturing myself at my cousin's. Soleil would be next to me, and there were some very loud relatives. Go figure, you know, saying stuff that, and I would just go, Soleil, need to go to the bathroom. I don't want to go. We go walk, and then sometimes it would be like, oh, it is time to go for a walk. I need to stretch my legs. Let's go. And scoop my two kids up, and we would go and take a walk around the block, wherever we were. You know, got them away from whatever was swirling. So I could do it in such subtle ways, you know, and it wasn't like making a big deal, like I'm getting out of here. You shouldn't be talking about that, you know, it's just, oh, so thank you for bringing that. Anybody else? Okay. So a couple of things that we can do for holiday times that help to bring in ritual and meaning and connection with our children. So I love to say to parents, it doesn't have to be at holiday time to do this, but Jack and I are still really dedicated practitioners of being grateful. And we had started when our children were very little with this big jar, a glass jar, and we titled it the gratitude jar. Oh, and I would take, you know, like watercolor paper like this, just like I did on my chapstick here, and I would put watercolor paper on it, just said gratitude, and I would cut watercolor paper up like little fortune cookie size, and we would, anytime we passed that jar, if we thought about something, we would just write down what we were grateful for and put it in. It looked quite beautiful because it was glass and it had all these watercolor papers in it, and we did it all year long. And then on the New Year's Eve, we would dump them all out, what we all wrote, and we would pass them around with the four of us, the two of us and our kids, and we would all read what we were grateful for. It was so cool because through the years, when the kids finally got to be grumbly teenagers, and we'd be sitting around reading all the things that we were grateful for, it was so good. Such good medicine, because they would hear all these very uplifting things, and sometimes very common things. I'm so grateful that we had dinner together tonight, or what, but it was a year of gratitude that we would go through. It was so beautiful. So the gratitude jar never gets old in my view. And sometimes you might encourage children to do it at dinner. Sometimes we used to keep it if people were unusually grouchy. We'd bring it over to the dinner table and be like, okay, everybody has a pen. Write down what you're grateful for today. We'd be like, nothing. Okay. Put it right in. Thank you. Thank you. Next, and yeah, and then on New Year's Eve when we would read it, we'd be like, oh, nothing, and everybody would be laughing, and and so it would bring humor, and there's no judgment about what you're grateful for or not. Yeah, you just put it in there. So I highly recommend that. Ways of really getting, connected. And that giveaway box was another one of mine. Just creating it and making it a beautiful art piece, and then always having this box year round that, it's like the minute the kids see it, they want to put something in it because they start feeling like, I wonder who's going to get this. This is so cool, right? So not forgetting that. Handmade cards. And creative gifts. Waldorf parents, please know, you will not know what to do with the stacks of art your children send home by the time they're in 3rd grade. By the time they're in 12th, you will really not know what to do. So start now making things out of what they bring home. So make cards. Cut up their watercolors, fold them over, make a little card. Sometimes you could print out a bunch of pictures of your children and they can cut them out and put them on top of a card and give them to grandparents as a little gift. So you can get creative with what they make at school and use them as gifts. Sometimes people have made placemats out of their watercolor papers. You could, yes, there's so many great ideas. Do you have any ideas to bring? I know you're the creative guru. Yeah.
We make gift tags.
Gift tags, yes, we
Yeah.
used to do that, and you can punch a hole in it and put a little yarn, and then you have your holiday gift tags or your birthday gift tags. Yeah. Anything else?
We've used them to make picture frames for Mother's Day or Father's Day. We've made paper chains.
Yes.
Whole papers.
Ornaments.
Yes. Twinkly stars that you hang off of the ceiling or branch.
Thank you. So use what your children bring home from here or from, whatever they create. Recycle, right? Don't let them just stack up in your garage. For family time, to bring a lot of joy, and especially at times where we don't have that much maybe ease with our family members, lean in and get interested and say to your family, we want to ask, maybe if your children are a little older, like some have older children, interview their grandparents and ask them all kinds of questions and record it. And then you can write it out, or now you can have it transcribed very easily. And then you have these treasures from your families, and interview a person each time, or maybe you can get a few done, but you get to hear stories about their childhood and about where they came from, and maybe before they came here they want to talk about their childhood or with their parents, and they learn a lot. Sarah, my son's girlfriend, who is a graduate from here, she was with her dad and uncle just 2 nights ago, or last night. She came over and she interviewed them and really had like an in-depth interview about what it was like coming from China to here, and had that she said she learned things that she never knew before, and it brings such connection, and the grandparents feel so loved. um, one year, I don't remember the name of it, but we gave my parents a gift of, um, it was a company that every week they would get a question sent and they had to write out an answer. And at the end of the year, they turn it into a book and they put a picture of them on the front, and it's their whole life story, all the questions that they were asked and they had to answer. So there are these beautiful things, and then you can read it together and the children really get to know the family deeply.
There are card games now where, like these dinner card games where and it's, for family, or it can be with friends too. And they have all like these questions right now, and then, you just sort of pick a card and then you have to answer that
Oh, that's
question.
so fun.
So it's in that.
Yeah,
spirit.
so fun. It's like the moth stories also, like, you get somebody telling a story and then it triggers another person and you keep it going, so everybody gets to tell a story, anybody who wants to participate. So these are wonderful ways to break through and really get wholesome stories from family, and funny stories, and learn about the history, and have your children really feel part of something. Candle dipping. These are other things that we can do during holiday time. I like to get a secondhand. You could go to Savers and get a secondhand crock pot, I use a small size one, and I can make all kinds of things with beeswax in it. You can get cookie cutters, and you could also make stars, golden stars, and things like this. So I'm just giving some things that you can actually do with the children during the holiday that's wholesome. Um, of course, we miss the ginkgos now, right? Because they're not, the leaves aren't falling anymore. But if you have in time, if you get a ginkgo tree, the ginkgo stinko, you place the leaf in when it's golden into beeswax, and it curls just like angel's wings. It crosses over, and you get those little it's like a wooden ball with a hole in it, and you could put an acorn top on it and a little halo with a pipe cleaner and stick it together, and it's like a little angel. And we would hang them all over the classrooms, and we used to do them at home. So yeah, so there's lots of ideas that you can do with children for gifts that are wholesome, that aren't you going out and spending so much money. You could make applesauce and jar it. You can jar broth and different kinds of sauces and salsas and things like that, and give that as gifts to family members, so you and your children can cook together, and it could become a seasonal thing that you do, or baking certain cookies. You might already have that as a family tradition. So anybody else have anything to add that they'd like to bring in for some inspiration?
Robbie once gifted me a beeswax ornament. And so the girls and I did that last year with stars. I thought that's a really nice gift, and it's very simple to do.
Yes, yes,
For giving.
yes, it's very wonderful. Beeswax ornaments. Yeah. Yeah, so I hope this conversation stirs up more conversation amongst everybody, or if anybody has questions of, hey, how do you do that? Reach out. And we could talk about that further. But for now, I hope it's been inspiring, and I hope that you feel that you can go into the holiday with a new view, and not feel overwhelmed or feel like you have to do same old, same old. You can get back to basics and just keep thinking about connection and what are my values. So on that note, we'll take a deep breath and allow ourselves to arrive back into our space after we had this swirl of all these ideas and thoughts and conversation. We bring it all into the center of our being. And we'll allow ourselves to just imagine now that everybody has a happy, peaceful, and easy break. Whether you celebrate or you don't, may it be gentle and may it be connected. A full breath in and a full breath out. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Thanks for being here and have a wonderful rest of the week. I'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you.
Stephanie, every year, it's just amazing.
Oh,
It's so there are quite a few traditions that we picked up on because of you. So thank you.
oh, that's
Thank
so
you.
great. I'm so happy.
Such a fun one.
Yes, yes. And it doesn't get old, as